Hi, welcome to the Kids Ministry Leader Podcast, a conversation designed to encourage, equip, and inspire children's ministry leaders from churches of all sizes, large, small, urban, and rural. We want to put good tools in the hands of ministry leaders, both paid and volunteer, from churches all around the world. Well, I'm your host, Scott Murish, and I've been involved in children's ministry for about 30 years, and this is my wife.
Hi, I'm Trisha Murish. And I'm Kayla Risk.
And we have our guest today, Stephanie Saum. Stephanie is a children's pastor from Florida, and she has something unique about her, and that is Stephanie is also a mom of 7 kids that make up a tremendous amount, take up a tremendous amount of time in her life, but also an incredible resource of ministry and what God's doing in her children. So Stephanie, why don't you introduce yourself, tell listeners hi, and a little bit about you that nobody knows, an inside secret to Stephanie Saum.
Hey guys, an inside secret. Well, first of all, I thought you were going to say my kids take up a tremendous amount of space, which they do. There's 7 of them, but they're awesome. An inside secret is, nobody knows this, that it is my lifelong goal, true story, I want to yodel. I want to learn how to yodel, and I cannot do it. I've tried, and one day I'm going to get there.
All right. Well, we have listeners in Switzerland. So Switzerland listeners, please chime in. And if you have yodeling lessons, let us know about that. So I'm going to turn our next question over to Michaela.
All right. So to get started, Stephanie, we would love to hear about your calling to ministry. How did you get involved with kids ministry?
I think for a lot of people, it's that one moment at either a revival or kids camp, and you're at the altar and you're praying and God's calling me. For me, I don't remember a time when I didn't want to be involved with kids. It's just always been there. I never knew what it would look like or what I would be doing. I remember telling my friends in high school, when I grow up, my job is going to be something to do with kids, traveling, and music. And people would look at me and say, well, number one, kids don't pay. And then what does that look like? And eventually I married my husband in 1990, and we were in full-time kids ministry at that time, but I didn't know what it would look like. I just knew that it was always there. That was part of me, that it would be kids.
Well, that's amazing. Well, my first encounter with Stephanie Saum was when you and your husband, Big Vinny, were doing a kids camp right here in Nebraska. And it was a tremendous time for us. Actually, you inspired us more than we can even put into words. There's so many things that we have done through our years of kids ministry that we're like, well, if Vince and Stephanie can do that, then it must work. And it was really great stuff. And hearing you sing, so you got the traveling down, you got the singing down, you have an incredible voice, and also your kids were involved in ministry with you, alongside you as well. So big wins in your life, Stephanie. But along with big wins in ministry, I think something that connects with our listeners is knowing that it's not always easy. And life throws curveballs at us all the time. And so could you share with our listeners maybe a ministry struggle or ministry fail that you've seen God help you overcome that would inspire our listeners?
For sure. I mean, I think my biggest ministry struggle would be 5 years ago, the day after Christmas, my husband passed away. And as long as we were married, we had done kids ministry together, and I was his helper. I was his sound guy, girl. I was a great helper to him, and he left us, and it left me trying to figure out what ministry looked like for me. And if you want to talk struggle, that was a struggle. And all I had known is ministry. I'd never had a job. I raised my kids. I didn't know anything else. And my pastor asked me we were kids pastors at a church, and my pastor asked me to stay on for a month. And I thought, I can't do this. This isn't me, right? I'm the helper. And then he asked me to stay on for 2 more months. And then eventually it was a year later, and I remember going into his office saying, am I still supposed to be here? But I questioned whether God had a plan for me myself, or did God have a plan for me because I was connected with my husband? And through a series of events, I've been on staff at a church now for the last 3 months. And the cool thing is, nobody here knew who my husband was. And so I feel like I grew in my ministry in those months of struggling after he passed away. But God really made it clear to me through so many things that he had a special plan just for me. And I'm doing it now, and it's a little strange. It's cool and strange all at the same time.
Yeah, your identity so much is wrapped up in that relationship, because you know how the other person's going to respond, and you know what the cues are: sound cues, ministry cues, puppet cues, drama cues, all of those things. And then when the other half of you is gone, and our heart goes out to you, because we know that there are listeners out there who have gone through similar struggles, whether it be the loss of a spouse that they've ministered side by side with for years, or a tragedy or a struggle within the church that caused a position to end, no fault of their own, or a job to end, maybe through layoffs, especially through COVID. People have had devastating issues where their identity immediately has to go, where do I stand? What leg do I have to stand on now? And so, Stephanie, we're so thrilled that you are not only a success story, but an overcomer in multiple facets. And I just want to say we're proud of what God's done through you, and that's very, very exciting. So I'm going to turn our next question over to my wife, Trisha, and let's go with that one.
Well, that's great, Stephanie. I'm so excited about this one because, the struggles that we have lead into the wins that we have. And this is an opportunity. We'd really love for you to share a big win, something where God just stepped in and you got to be a part of what God was already doing. And can you share something like that with us?
I think about this, and I don't know. I feel like every weekend that I get to spend with kids is a win. Every weekend I think it was better than the weekend before. Every time I'm with kids, but the last month or so in our ministry specifically, we've had just the most special times where the Holy Spirit has come into our room, and it's been such a quiet reverence. And for me, that's been amazing. But I think one of the coolest wins is we were in Albuquerque, New Mexico, more than 20 years ago. I remember the Sunday that we did a kids service, and the first time after a year, not one kid came down to say, I want to ask Jesus into my heart. And we were like, nobody got saved today. And to us, that was the biggest win, because it finally meant that they were understanding, they were getting the teaching, and they were understanding the relationship that they had with Jesus. And it was pretty cool to say that your biggest win is when no one got saved. But
that's awesome. that is like victory. All right, everyone here knows Jesus. All right, so now let's send out the 72. It's time. Let's go out and make disciples.
Well, and I also think that if you're going to talk about wins in kids ministry, you don't always see the win, and you don't always see the fruit right away. And you're making an investment, and other areas in the church, you'll get immediate, ooh, that worked. But in kids ministry, it's 15 years, 20 years, 25 years later, people will come up to you and say, I'm going to start crying. But, just say that how they are not just in the kingdom of God, but they're serving God, or they're in ministry, and it was because of something you said or something you did or a service that you're at. And that, I'll take that any day.
I think that's beautiful, Stephanie. And, for our listeners too, sitting beside me is Michaela, and she was one of our wins, and we think back about that years down the line, that we see these kiddos grow up, and it is so significant and important to lay that strong foundation and to allow those opportunities for children to hear and to grow and to invest in them. And Michaela, we're just really excited that you're a part of this with us now, because you are one of our wins. So she was in our kids ministry, and we had the opportunity to just be a part of her story, and that's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt for just a moment and ask you to brag on Stephanie, brag on your own kids. What's God doing in them right now? Because I know they're almost all involved in ministry in one way or another.
Yep, every single one of them. And, it's kind of our family business. We just decided that we were going to train and raise our kids in their spiritual gifts and their strengths, and that they were going to be involved in some kind of ministry. They don't have to be paid, but be involved in some kind of ministry. So my oldest daughter works at a church in Atlanta on the kids ministry staff there. I don't like it that she doesn't live close to us, but at least it's one day's drive. My oldest son, the next down, Samuel, he works here at a local church here in the media department. And then my son Jeremy works, he has a job, but then he is a keyboard player here at our church. And then my other 4 girls are involved in media, the worship, in the youth, in the kids, and they're all helping me. And I just love it. I don't know what I'm going to do when one day they're gone and they've got their own ministry. I'm going to have to build a team because I've got a team. But I just love it, and I'm so glad that they're all involved in carrying on what we've taught them. But when I look at each one of them has a piece of what their dad was good at, and I feel like in most of the cases they are going far beyond what he ever did, and it's the legacy that he left that they are continuing.
Yeah, the ministry of Big Vinny is bigger than ever.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So truly is. Well, that's awesome.
Well, Stephanie, with COVID hitting churches this past year, what are some adaptations you've made in ministry with your church that you've had to change up because of COVID in order to effectively minister to your families?
We did the online as soon as COVID hit. We were doing weekly online content. But I think, especially with COVID, and you've got to look at your church and your community. And we're very blessed in Florida to be pretty open. So we have been back in church since July, back in services. And we started back with all of the safety precautions with the temperature, and all that. But I think what our families wanted was they wanted to be back in church. And I know every church is different. So for us, we adapted for a while with COVID, but then once our families were ready to come back, we came back.
Very good. Well, every one of us has to do what it takes to get ministry accomplished, whether it is doing temperature checks on entry, hand sanitation, mandatory masks in your services. We've seen mandatory masks in the lobbies, and then once people are seated, they've been able to, if their rows are spaced, to be able to stay spaced and take their masks off so you can still breathe in church, if you will. But we've just had to learn to be very flexible. I like to quote a non-Bible verse. It is not in the Bible, but it should be. I like to say this is 1 Camp-Bolonians 3:16. Because we do camp ministry all the time. 1 Camp-Bolonians 3:16, blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be broken. And so being flexible in ministry, especially in times of COVID, is huge.
Also, Stephanie, one of the things we're really excited about for this platform is being able to share a resource with listeners, something that's been meaningful to you or helpful to you in your ministry or your personal growth. So do you have a resource that you could share with us today?
I do. So for personal growth, I know everybody has all of the Bible studies and all of the podcasts and everything, and everybody does that. But I think one of the most important things you can do for your own personal growth when you're on staff at a church and when you're in kids ministry, you're in kids church. You're not in big church, right? Listen to your pastor's sermons because it makes you part of the family and it keeps you connected. And we have Saturday night and Sunday morning services at ours. So I try to listen Saturday on the way home, just so I feel like I'm with them. I'm with the rest of the church. So I think that's really important, to be connected to your church. But as far as resources, I'm going to tell you two. I love, love, love. We go through times where we write our own curriculum or we use a curriculum, and I love high voltage curriculum. I mean, it's my favorite. It's so easy and it's adaptable, but it's filled with biblical content. Definitely worth the money. And then my second, these are my favorite books. I'm going to hold them up. They're the Very books. And so there's 6 of them. I bought some on Amazon. You can buy them on, I think it's Standard Pub. They're Standard Publishing. And they are amazing. They're designed for small groups, but they are so easy and the kids love them. This one has always been kids' favorite, 13 Very Bad Days and How God Fixed Them. And in a pinch, somebody can cancel at the last minute and you can pull one of these books out and you've got a service. And so definitely worth buying.
That sounds like a winner right there.
Yeah. Can you read those other titles to us? 13 Very Bad Days.
13 Very Big Mistakes. 13 Very Awesome Promises. Very Amazing Animals. Very Surprising Sayings, and then 13 Very Cool Stories, and that's the parables.
So neat.
Well, that's awesome. I tell you what, we will link those in our show notes page. And so I just want to have a little commercial here that if anyone wants to purchase any of these resources, whether high voltage or the high voltage curriculum, I'm assuming that's the Brian Dollar curriculum, tremendous stuff coming out of Little Rock, Arkansas. And then also those books. If you go to our show notes page and click on the 13 Very series, you'll be able to purchase those. And anytime you purchase through our links on our show notes page or through kidsministryleader.com, through our resources pages, we get a proceed back from those. Amazon actually has an affiliate program that we're a part of. And so when you purchase through our website, you're actually supporting and helping us create more content and be able to interview and put dollars aside for resources and also for conferences that we want to host in the future. So thank you for sharing those, Stephanie. Great stuff. And I know children's ministry leaders often get those Saturday night phone calls. I got one this Saturday night. Hey, Scott, can you fill in for me on Sunday morning? And I'm like, you got it. No problem. Tell me when and where. And so we're always glad to have go-to resources like that.
Definitely. So our next question, Stephanie, for you is kind of a fun one. If you were going to go somewhere and start a new ministry, what are a couple of things you would do to launch that children's ministry?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious is build a team, right? You want a team, you want your volunteers. But I think the biggest thing I would say is if you're going to launch a brand new ministry, there's nothing that says you have to do everything right at once. If you have 5 kids, you mentor and disciple those 5 kids and connect with those 5 kids, and those kids will grow. And I think sometimes we look to the program and the stage and the sound and everything. And if you're launching a brand new ministry, you gotta connect with the kids and the families, or it won't last.
Well, that's huge. Connection, pure personal connection is massive. I know that any of the students that have ever gone into ministry through our years of ministry were ones that Trish and I chose, either through after-school Bible study programs that we would launch, or we had a ministry called the Exalt Ministry where we brought students in. We taught them puppet ministry. We taught them drama, music, anything that was creative and something that kids could literally and physically get their hands on. If they were doing ministry, if they were involved, then that discipleship process happened in them. And no matter what size church we were a part of, those that went on into ministry or are still involved in their church today are the ones that we personally invested in and discipled. So I loved it when you said, even if you have 5, because that is the majority of our listeners. The majority of churches in America today are under 100. So don't think you've got to be the big kids pastor, the big kids ministry with a paid staff position somewhere to be effective. If you're ministering to 5 kids, you are doing what Jesus did.
I will say also, we've got Valentine's Day coming up, and if you want to launch a ministry, and if you want to really connect with your parents, have a parents' night out. If COVID allows, every church should be having a parents' night out the Friday night before Valentine's Day, because you watch the kids for 4 hours, give them a good time. You watch the kids and make sure the kids have fun and let the parents go out by themselves. You've won over some parents right there.
Yeah, let's go a little further. Stephanie, if you've done those before, give us some ideas of what you can do for a parents' night out. Put some thoughts, get the juices flowing.
Oh my goodness, we love them. I try to make them free. I try to do it where the parents don't have to spend anything. We have a snack when they get there. We have organized games. We have crafts. We have we try to rent a bounce house or something if your church doesn't have one. And we literally have it planned out almost like a camp day, so that there's no downtime, and the kids are tired and they're worn out. And the parents, I've had parents crying, dropping their kids off before because they can't get babysitters. Or, we had one family with 6 kids. Nobody wants to babysit their kids. And they brought them to parents' night out, and they didn't have to pay us. That's just what I've always tried to do. Keep it free. If you can't keep it free, keep it cheap. You can get pizza for cheap, or you can do something easy, and give the parents, give them a night out where they can relax and they know their kids are safe, and huge brownie points.
That is gold right there. For those of you who have done those before, you know the victory and the success. If you haven't, give it a shot. There are churches also that have ministries to foster kids that do a foster parents night out. That's a little more intensive because you need to have some trained staff on site that are certified for respite care and things like that. But foster parents night out, parents nights out, big win. Stephanie, you are giving us golden nuggets that all of us can use.
Yeah, I just so appreciate, Stephanie. I've just really loved that we have dialed back a little bit and just focused on some really important foundational basic things. And that is, trust the Lord to minister and to share with you what you need to do where you are. I just love that you've helped us to go back to that and say, we can pray, we can trust the Holy Spirit to show us exactly what we need to do, no matter what the size of group is. And He will lead us. He is the answer for kids ministry. He wants to speak to our kids. And so just being a vessel is such a beautiful thing, Stephanie. I think that's great. So if our listeners want to follow you, they want to say, hey, we want to know what Stephanie's up to, where can we find you online?
Social media, Facebook and Instagram. That's about all I haven't gotten into anything else, but those two, yep, I'm on there.
That's awesome. That is so fantastic. Well, Stephanie, thanks for joining us today for the Kids Ministry Leader Podcast. You've given us great resources, and hopefully we'll hear from you again soon in the future, possibly to be a part of one of these live or online virtual conferences. So if you'd like to learn more, you can go to our show notes page or go to our website at kidsministryleader.com. Click on the links below. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe on YouTube. That helps us build our subscriber base so that more people can hear. Our goal is to have thousands of kids ministry leaders across the world, from churches large and small, urban and rural, be equipped to do ministry to kids. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
Bye.